So I think, as Emily said, the whole school approach is the focus of so much of our attention. It's highly complementary to the curriculum elements, but it's really that focus of the Royal Commission's recommendation, that deep culture change in schools. And people might be familiar with the wheel diagram that we've got, and comes out of the Our Watch trial and pilot with 6 elements that are critical to making a whole school approach work, and they include things like commitment from the leaders of the school, making sure that the curriculum and in-classroom teaching is supported, but certainly community partnerships is a really critical piece of that. So that's, and there's a number of our Respectful Relationships project leads and liaison officers in the room who are working with schools to help them embed all 6 of those elements. As some of the other panel members have said, and I'm newer to the world of education, but I understand it's not always the most natural thing for a school to be working with community sector partners in their areas. I think it's something that's probably quite highly variable across the state. Under the implementation model we've got, I mentioned dedicated staff in DET's 17 regional area offices. And their role is to work with schools to help implement their model. But particularly one of those people in each of the areas is there to be helping schools to lift their capability in dealing with disclosures, but particularly forge those connections with family violence organisations. And we've had some really fantastic feedback that for schools, they can sometimes feel that when government and the department says, okay, you need to do this, we might produce a great kind of glossy document, but it's really having someone that they can speak to and work with, and someone who's got a bit more of that expertise and can help facilitate the calls that really helps them. So I think we're on a journey, and I think, I talked a bit about the local connections. I should also mention at the kind of statewide level and some of the conversations that happen in government about the design and implementation of big family violence initiatives and reforms that are happening. That's something where the peak organisations, DVRCV, members of the Family Violence Steering Committee, are absolutely having a major impact with government. Probably the thing that I've heard more than anything in working in family violence policy is make sure it's a genuine partnership between the family violence sector and government. There was an incredibly strong model that people point to 10 years ago when that was a highly collaborative thing, and it could not be more critical now when there's just an incredible amount of activity across government in family violence. So certainly I get the privilege of being part of some of those conversations at the most senior levels of government with people like Emily, people like Fiona McCormack, and others who are really making sure the family violence sector voice is heard.
I think it's a really, really important question because one of the things that I saw happen when it was announced that the department would be taking on Respectful Relationships education is some of the community organisations who'd been doing really great work went, oh, well, no, there's not a role for us anymore, so we'll focus on something else. And I think there definitely really is an important role for the community sector to play there. I think there's a number of things, and it probably starts with connecting in with those staff that Justin was talking about, with the local DET staff who are working in the region to see what they're doing, but also to be able to offer support from the different people I've met and the things I've heard. Those staff have a range of different experiences, and some have more experience around things like gender and some of the drivers and things than others. So I think there's probably roles in supporting staff and being someone that they can have those ongoing conversations with. As well as that, I think there's an important role in consultation with those staff in supporting schools and being able to be there and be quite flexible for schools in terms of the schools that are participating in the program, particularly what sorts of things might they need, because the DET staff are spread quite thin on the ground. They've got a lot of schools to work with. There's definitely going to be, I won't say that, I know there is, schools who are definitely seeking lots of extra support. And I know some schools have struggled to get that. For instance, an example, I'm doing a little bit of work with a school who had said they'd approached some services who were going to charge them really high amounts of money to do some stuff around response. So I think it's being accessible to schools as much as you can, and knowing that you do have a really important role in being able to support both schools. And I think the other thing I've heard is that there's a lot of teachers who feel quite nervous about delivering teaching and learning materials, and I think there could possibly be a role for the community sector there in being able to offer schools just that little bit of extra support around that. And it definitely doesn't mean that you go in and do it, because that is not what we want to see. But there's lots of ways, I think, that staff who have had experience in doing those things in the past and know some of the issues that come up and questions and things like that could actually be a really valuable support to the staff who will now need to deliver that on the ground.